artistic research. Research is often understood as the production of new knowledge, or perhaps better, the seeking after new knowledge. There are no guarantees. Our understanding of what knowledge is, of how and where we find it, has developed in interesting ways over recent decades. How has this come about? We might identify 4 strands in particular. Cognitive theory has proposed a broader understanding of the ways in which humans produce and use knowledge. We now speak of embodied knowledge, of distributed knowledge. In the practice of science, rapid advances have obliged us to confront the new kinds of knowledge it generates. The technologies of simulation, for example, produce vital knowledge that may not be falsifiable in conventional terms. And theoretical science can generate hypotheses that challenge human understanding itself. Philosophy has widely acknowledged that the very notion of knowledge is a human cultural phenomenon. We recognize that it exists within a discourse, within some kind of cultural context, while at the same time we seek to avoid the perpetual relativizing of knowledge. And our common understanding of what constitutes culture, what constitutes art and artistic practice, has broadened immeasurably. In music, we see this in the way that musical institutions, disciplines, and criticism have come to encompass improvisation, non-Western music, popular music, sound art, technological and conceptual developments, alongside what was previously considered the domain of art music. Whether knowledge exists in different kinds, or whether we should rather consider that we acquire it in different modes, is a matter of continuous debate. What is important for our purposes is that knowledge generated in one situation cannot simply be mapped onto another. The articulation and mediation of knowledge will become an important topic as we explore artistic research. Is it a new discipline? Well, as we listen to different views, we will discover that there is no formula, no dogma. The conception of a project is itself a creative activity, a process of research. But the various paths to knowledge have in common a balance of coherent, rigorous thought, insight, an awareness of context, and some kind of sustained practice. This is as true of the most personal of poetry as it is of the most objective of science. In the case of artistic research, we're dealing with the pursuit of knowledge by artists through their art. There are several nearly cognate terms, labels that mean nearly the same. For instance, creative research, practice-based or practice-led research, or even practice as research. Why are these different? Well, as I said earlier, knowledge exists in the context of a discourse, an exchange, sufficient consensus for differences of opinion to make sense. We might think of these as knowledge economies. Economies have their own terms, values, and dynamics, so it's not surprising that the knowledge economy in one country, one system of funding and learning, has different ways of expressing and evaluating this kind of work to that in another, and makes different demands on artist researchers. Just like science, artistic research cannot entirely separate itself from the institutional context within which it takes place. Just as in science, there's often a dynamic tension between institutional discipline and the individual. but the negotiation of this tension is an essential part of the production of knowledge, of discourse, and of community. A project of artistic research implicitly forms a critical relationship with its institutional situation, just as it does with its intellectual and musical contexts. The practice of artistic research explores the boundaries of the ways in which the institutions of music conceive of their own discipline, their own role.